All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in for the first live session of 2026. My name is Abder, and I'm the co-founder of Intuitive, the company behind CISO Assistant. And for this session, we'll walk you through the highlight of what we intended for this year roadmap. Without further ado, the overall will be around the improvement that we are scheduling for this year, the kind of improvement that we are looking also to achieve in our way of working, and the main features that we got from your feedbacks and that have been scheduled for this year. Of course, this is more of a compass than an actual map where strict guidelines. The idea is that we keep improving and adjusting depending on the feedbacks that we'll get from you. Jumping right ahead, or actually before I do that, as usual, you have the chat. Either if you're tuning in through LinkedIn or YouTube, feel free to use the chat and then keep an eye on the other screen so that we can make it more interactive. All right, jump into this one, and we should have a better layout. Right, so first thing first, we don't want to go too fast and lose the users. That's why we will start by some fundamental improvement that we need to do around documentations. And to this regard, since we have added multiple features over 2025, we need to take a step back and restructure the documentation in a more maintainable and sustainable way. And the restructuring will be based around the user journeys rather than the actual features. And this is something we already initiated in December, and we believe that the first, at least V2 of the documentation should be available around February. Next thing, as requested by the community, we kind of teased this on 2025 around this kind of CISO Assistant Academy, and we simply going to call it learning path, where we're going to structure some typical journeys for users. It could be around the ISO 271 certifications, could be something around fundamentals of risk management. And the idea is that you will not be driven by the capabilities of the platform, but rather some use cases that will pull some of the concepts of the platform. Next thing will be around the guided tour mode that we already support, and that will get a significant boost as we will start pulling more pages and embed them within the guided tour mode. If you're not familiar with this, it's basically the first thing that you get asked to do when you start the CISO Assistant for the first time, where you will have this kind of click path and with this kind of dimming and the hover mode. And the idea is to have a specific guided tour for each one of the features so that it makes it more contextualized and more friendly. Of course, we will keep what we do best, which is listening to your feedback and adjusting accordingly. Naturally, we have some solid foundations that need to be expanded to cover new horizons and new industries, starting by the frameworks. As of now, we are pretty honored to have the largest library out there, thanks to your contribution as well. And we keep adding more and more frameworks that are requested by you or are just popping out here and there for specific regions or specific industries. Just this week, we added one around Microsoft benchmark, cloud benchmark, which is a good foundation for cloud security, as well as the EITS for Estonian standards. So yeah, feel free to check out the release note regarding the new frameworks. Hello, Laura. Thank you for tuning in. Obviously, as we go and we grow with more and more frameworks, we need more mappings to keep things consistent and reuse your existing works. That's why we added during December a large chunk of mappings around the ACF to use this concept of meta frameworks. We have a great webinar that we did with Nathan. So if you have not listened to it yet, I highly advise that you take a look and learn about those meta frameworks. Obviously, the X-Rays rules engine is one of the fundamental components that runs quality checks and ensure good consistency around what you do. So we keep improving it whenever we see a relevant rule to do there. And this doesn't pull any AI engine, just a basic static rule engine that is quite fast and more consistent. And obviously, the last thing around community will be to add more translation. Last week, we added the Chinese simplified version sports, and I believe that we have Vietnamese also in the next 2 weeks that should also be added. Feel free to reach out on Discord to vote for any relevant language or standard that you deem relevant. And as usual, if it gets more traction, we will definitely add it for free. Part of the commitment that we made is to keep simplifying the input process, specifically when you're doing those brainstorming sessions. And we've done some POCs or POCs with some users around the whiteboarding mode. And we identified at least 2 or 3 cases that could benefit from this approach. Basically, instead of filling forms, you'll be just drawing cards and linking them. And the application will detect the type of notes that you took there and just convert everything in the right place. Given that the data model is consistent and solid, it will just detect the associated objects and create them on your behalf. As well as for the kill chain, we support that for the ABS IRM studies. If you're doing chassing, probably you've seen it last year. But we want to take it a step further for SOC teams or just people who want to conduct risk analysis without going through the ABS IRM. They should be able also to model their kill chain directly on CISO Assistant. So for the kill chain, we will keep it in the simplified format, meaning just 4 stages. And if the users are also requesting that, we could also add the extended mode, which will cover all the tactics of the Mitri attack, for instance. Last thing around whiteboarding mode will be around threat modeling, which is kind of complementary, but could also cover some kind of approaches like Stride or other relevant framework, which is a nice addition to have a full workflow, either around AppSec or just the fundamentals of your compliance. If I go a bit further, obviously, we don't want to go too fast on new features without strengthening and improving the existing. And a big part of our challenges is to keep the application simple enough while adding extra features. And to this regard, the UI and UX improvement is one of our core activities. Each time we do some form of experimentations, we've listened to some of your feedbacks. We know that a lot of you requested dark mode, and we had to do some preparation work to do it first. And 2026 will be the year to release dark mode finally on CISO Assistant. Data grid mode also will be a nice addition to help with the data input, and basically it will convert most of the tables to more dynamic approach with advanced filtering, advanced autocomplete, and most of all some kind of drop downs. And this will make the input experience way more friendly with custom filters and custom sorting and even custom column display. naturally part of your work and to maintain a good balance with productivity. The idea is to improve the cloning capabilities. As of now, few core objects support that, like audits, risk assessment, and so on. But we will take it also with an extra notch to cover more sophisticated cases like the ABSRM studies or the GDPR processing, where we have this kind of convoluted objects that pull other objects. So the deep cloning capabilities will allow you to achieve that by cloning a global object, but also its children. And we know that some of you reported the fact that they cannot convert their frameworks using the toolbox, given that they don't have access to Python, or it's kind of restricted on their corporate workstation. That's why we will be moving the library that converts the frameworks directly to the app. So this way, you will just edit your Excel sheets and adapt it to the expected format and drag and drop to let the application convert it on your behalf. Looking at the chat, if I missed something, right. In addition to the converter, we know that in some cases you don't need or you don't want to go over all the capabilities of the frameworks directly on the Excel sheet. Like for instance, when you're dealing with just a simple checklist or simple basic framework. For this, we will also add a UI editor directly, which even will remove the need for an Excel sheet. The Excel will be there given the versatility of the format and how far you can push it. But this one will be complementary and nice addition for those of you who don't or cannot handle Excel sheet to this regard. Email template customization, specifically for onboarding, and also typical evidences creation automatically based on default presets will be some extra addition for this year. The exports are also a big chunk of what we are expecting to do around 2026, starting by some highly requested ones around the EBIOS, around the processing, but most of all around PowerPoints, because a lot of you are picking some information from CISO Assistant for their exec reporting. And the idea is to be able to generate directly a deck with the critical information, and you can just complement it with some context and some project-driven information or some key takeaways. And to this regard, this will also benefit from what we're preparing around exposing the templates for Word documents or PowerPoint documents, and the combination of the two will allow you to generate directly from CISO Assistant all the relevant information, matching your visual identity as well. So yeah, customizing the export templates will be something that will go with this previous feature. Going a bit more specific this time around DORA. If you're not familiar with this, it's one of the core frameworks right now around financial institution in Europe, or any actually financial institution operated in Europe. And one of the pain points that the community reported in 2025 was the generation of the ROI, Register of Information, that pulls a lot of data around your assets, around your vendors, the critical ICT, and so on. And we finished that, and we're pretty happy with the result, but there are still two extra expected objects or reports, to be more accurate, that are out there, specifically the incident management or incident report, as well as the threat intel. Those two concepts will be also added this year, which will also pull the concept of threat intel that will be happening, and I will comment that later on. Some of the users also reported the need to have more fine-grained permissions or capabilities on exporting and importing. For instance, if you want to break down something from a GDPR processing or from an ABOSRM study, and those sophisticated cases, in some edge cases, you want to maybe just to export to subset. So this is something that we're currently exploring on how to do it in the best convenient way. So once we have the right pattern for the UX, it will cover those specific needs. Moving on to another aspect regarding reporting, which is the analytics. The current users know that we have a lot of embedded analytics, but one of the challenges is how can we create maybe some form of asymmetric reporting or analytics based maybe on some domains attribute rather than just summarizing everything or just focusing on specific domain. So we are currently exploring how we can create and filter the analytics based on tags, which will allow you to create a more sophisticated reporting or sophisticated analytics. And to this regard, we will bring back the composer that we had in 2024. It was more experimental features that was used to kind of create a composition between multiple domains and around multiple objects. Now, we think that we have the right vision to create a new version of the composer that will push the limits of the previous version. And this will allow to cover all those sophisticated cases to have some form of small BI with advanced filtering that you can save and replay and share with your colleagues. And naturally, for more advanced cases, we currently already support Power BI, but through the API. We've noticed that some of the users are not familiar with the web data source on Power BI. That's why we'll create a custom connector. We've seen that there's this kind of syntax provided by Microsoft to create kind of wrapper around the API, and this is something we'll do to ease up the integration of Power BI. The purpose of this is basically to give more advanced organizations more capabilities to create their own reporting and just pull the data by using CISO Assistant as a data hub and do whatever reporting or advanced cross checks on their Power BI. Multi-tenancy is also another important aspect reported by a different persona, namely the consultant population that are using CISO Assistant, who share the fact that they want to have a form of a hub that can isolate, first of all, the directory. This is currently shared between the users of the platform. But that hub fundamentally will allow you to kind of manage a form of MSSP and link multiple CISO Assistant instances to a central point. This also could be a good enabler for very large organizations if you want to maybe even have like physical data isolation or even hybrid setup where you have some organizations in SaaS mode, other on premises, and you can just link everything around that hub. The name is not finalized yet, but the core idea is to have another app that will link multiple CISO Assistant instances. Right, looking at this. Awesome. Around the content management aspects, what we've selected as first priorities is the most requested features of Q4, which is around the Trust Center. Basically, to be able to expose some certification information, maybe some security policies or some pen test report or whatever content that the CISO Assistant users want to expose and share with their customers. So the Trust Center will allow you to do that. In addition to more internal portal, in case you kind of structure in your policies and you want to provide this to the internal users without exposing outside. So you will have the choice of either exposing or just exposing to non-authenticated users or to only authenticated ones. And the policy authoring with Markdown, now that we have the engine of Markdown, CISO Assistant will pop up also in 2026 and allow you to manage the lifecycle of your policies directly and link it to the rest of the objects. On the risk management module, the highlights of what we've selected based on your inputs is around the expansion of the risk quantifications module. We're pretty pleased with all the feedbacks and encouragement that we got from you. And one of the fun aspects that we'll explore will be around Bayesian models that will allow you to create those Markov chains with chaining between multiple scenarios and having specific probabilities that will go beyond the current model and gives you more fine-grained and more convoluted use cases. Part of the risk management, we will introduce the concept of templates so that you don't need to reinvent the wheel each time. Now you have a catalog of threats and assets, but in a lot of cases, the same asset classes are going through the same kind of threats. So we'll expand the suggestion engine that we currently have to cover those cases with more advanced templates. To this regard, this concept that I just mentioned around templates will be generalized progressively to cover something we will be calling presets. The presets fundamentally, as the name states, will allow you to combine multiple objects as one definition, and that definition could be a library object or it could be local. In another way, if I try to rephrase this, it will be something like I need to conduct a risk assessment, run an audit, maybe capture some third parties entities. As a consultant, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. I can just define a preset based on my practices and way of working. And whenever I have a new customer, I just run the preset to bootstrap things on my behalf. So this is something that we thought for consultants essentially. But we've identified also other cases for companies that are doing maybe security within projects, and they don't want to ask always the same things, and they want to use it as an onboarding process. So they could definitely use that to bootstrap even the project management as well and accelerate those onboarding paths. Now, on another important topics around productivity, what we intended for this year is to go a bit further with batch operations. Now we got to this point where we have very large organizations that are doing few hundred of audits and risk assessment and third party reviews, and we need to help them accelerate that work with some batch operations. So this could come from the data grid approach that I mentioned earlier, but also with some few specialized features around maybe the applied controls or around a new format for the timeline and Gantt chart. A lot of operations that we intended will go to this need of batching multiple operations. Naturally, around productivity, we need to expand the mapping capabilities. So mapping in our convention is what allows you to move from one standard to another. So if you finished your baseline, let's say on NIST CSF, and you want to see how you're behaving or how you're doing on the ISO 27005, you can just create a preview and then apply it. And we know that in some cases you don't even want to do that. So we will do some auto suggestions under the hood to help you even leverage the existing audits to bootstrap your audit. This will go also with the suggestion engines. You've seen it already on multiple audits that we enriched with some typical controls that need to be implemented. And for this, we want to take it a step further by enriching more and more frameworks, but also expanding it to risk assessment and other relevant objects where you end up doing the same thing over and over again. We identified some quick wins that we'll start with, and based on your feedback, we'll adjust to some extra features on the suggestion engine. And as we are getting more and more customers migrating from other solutions, namely a lot of Excel sheets that they have, and they start in their journey, they don't want to lose their existing work. And that's why we created last year the data wizard that kept improving over the year. One of the things that we've noticed that we need to improve the update process of Data Wizard and cover more objects. So this is something we are currently working on, and we will keep doing over this year. And the focus mode that was kind of discussed last year that will allow you to strip everything and focus on specific domain will be happening in 2026 as well. Getting close to the end and focusing now on the integration layer. Last year, we introduced multiple aspects around the MCP support, around the custom N8N node, and so on. And what we intend this year is to go a bit further by exposing a library workflows. I believe that we kind of chatted on LinkedIn with Laurent maybe around this one, where the idea will be to just share all the JSONs of typical N8N workflow around the CISO Assistant custom node, so that people actually just can drag and drop or pull them and reuse them as well. And the cool part will be that you can also submit your suggestions and benefit the community from them as well. Look forwarding either on infrastructure, on the audit log, will also be happening on the integration layer. And right now we covered Jira and ServiceNow in bidirectional synchronization, meaning that CISO Assistant can create tickets, but can also pull the status of tickets from the supported solutions. And I believe that we have ITOP and GLPI scheduled for 2026 as some of the most requested ITSM solutions. On the SSO, the ICM to help with authorization will also be happening. And this will conclude the integration part that's kind of related to some of the improvement that we are planning for the SaaS. So for the SaaS, one of the commitments that we're making is to finalize the ISO 27001 certification of CISO Assistant SaaS this year. And the all integration parts with N8N will be bundled within the SaaS offer. So it will be an extension of your existing subscription if you want to. So it's going to be optional. And this will help customers to avoid managing even an N8N, and we can just provide a bundled solution with some built-in integrations. The last thing that will be happening around the SaaS enhancement, since we are getting more and more regions and requests from people all over the world, we're pretty happy with the plus 64 countries that we are currently on. And a lot of customers asked for data residency options so that they can have more control of some specific regulations that are within some specific industries that imply that they need to go to a specific data residency, but also for performance. By doing that, we're looking to serve, to better serve actually our customers all over the world. And I believe that we already thinking about Canada for North America, we're thinking about India, and we're thinking about Switzerland. So those are some of the top new regions that will be opening in 2026. Maybe there will be more, but those are the most requested ones that we're currently working on. And the AI part, obviously, is one of the threads, and we don't oversell it because for us, it's just something that is quite obvious, and we're doing it whenever it makes sense. So we will keep expanding the MCP tools, and for this weekend release, you'll notice already some 2 extra capabilities of the MCP server, specifically around the TPRM and the ABIOS RM. So those are very hardcore tools that pull in about like 15 API call each to simplify all the management. So you're just chatting and it does all that magic on your behalf. But we'll also be expanding whenever something else come up. In addition to cloud skills that will help you even kind of batch multiple MCP calls and have kind of a journey around specific cases. The one that I'm currently working on will be around Bootstrap and CISO Assistant, and the one right after will be around WSRM. And we just opened a new thread, or actually a full chat channel on Discord, to get your suggestion about what are the relevant cloud skills cases so that we can input them. And again, this will follow the same pattern that is community driven, meaning that whenever you see a new case, you can upvote it, but also you can submit cloud skills, given that they're basically just a markdown files with some basic scripting if you want to, but you can just stick with markdown files to give instructions to the agent. And last but not least, on the AI part, we will be spending some time around some fine-tuning and some RAG use cases. More on this later on, but essentially is to be able to digest some of your existing documents and maybe also help you with pre-filling some questionnaires for vendor reviews and so on. So we identify a few cases with some of you, and we'll be exploring them on Q1 and probably running the first beta on Q2. The last thing that I left to the end is around the new concepts that have been selected. And for those new concepts, the first one will be around the actor concept. Basically, you have already the capability to assign multiple objects to users and assign even multiple users. But for the comfort of users, you can now create an actor that just can cover multiple users regardless of the IAM. And this will give you more flexibility of assignments and more flexibility also on the notification system. The third intel will be also a big concept and big topic that we'll be tackling, namely for two reasons. One of them is what I mentioned earlier around DORA, because for those reporting, we need also to cover the threat intels. But we also got some interesting suggestions from the community around creating an object for threat intel, linking it to incident, linking it to risk management, specifically for quantifications. And we see a lot of value with a simple input. Obviously, this will not become a full CTI solutions. There are amazing solutions out there, but to consume and digest those informations and inject them directly. Procedures are also some of the concepts that we will be added so that you can define some steps, for instance, during some crisis management, maybe just a procedure to implement something, to run a check, and so on. So this will allow the users, thanks to the authoring engine that we will be developing for policies, to create some steps for users, and thanks to the internal portal, they can expose them for users. And the last thing around the new concepts will be around technical test. This will be complementary concept to the compliance part, where in some cases you are not interested into the compliant, partially compliant, and so on. You are more interested into tests passed or failed, or disabled. It will be more simple status, and this is going to be quite interesting for checks like hardening rules, where we are not concerned with the compliance, but the result of the tests. Also, we'll be expanding the project management feature that we introduced on Q2 around accreditations to cover more budget management. And this way, we are covering all the aspects around PMBOK concepts. With this, we are pretty pleased with all your inputs. I went a bit fast, but you have the video that you can catch later on. And fundamentally, the core themes that we'll be exploring will vary as usual between strengthening our foundations, making sure that we are improving the existence. We are not just throwing new features, but rather stabilizing, making sure that we're getting your input, fixing the bugs when being reported, and then start improving the UX part before adding new concepts and exploring new areas. So yeah, we'll stick to the same formula and expand everything progressively on the space. All right, looking, Hendrik. So yeah, thank you, Hendrik. I believe that you maybe found some of the input that you reported earlier, or actually last year on the roadmap. And as usual, feel free to challenge us and push us and help us keeping CISO Assistant relevant by sticking to your day-to-day actions and helping us shaping the future of the platform for 2026. All right, making just a quick pause to see if there are other feedbacks. All right. Hi, Wendy. Yeah, awesome. Definitely. And I believe we already implemented a few things that we've discussed with you guys last year. So they're already supported. And based on your feedbacks, if there's something else that comes up, feel free to reach out so that we can schedule it and include it with the best design possible. Right. For the channels, as usual, we have the Discord and the GitHub, wherever platform you're comfortable with. You can use GitHub discussions or issues to report your suggestions, and you can use the channels dedicated to that on Discord if you prefer more chat experience. In both cases, what will be the kind of thread around this year is productivity and scalability. And for this, we selected those features. The AI part will be also a great expansion with the RAG use case identified while keeping the promise of being private first, meaning that it will be always compatible with a self-hosted mode where you can choose your own model. So no worries on this one. The MCP tools, even if we've designed them initially around Claude, we've seen that a lot of new solutions are also supporting MCP. Last time we've shared the video around LM Studio that is now supporting MCP tools, and you can run it fully locally. Hopefully, Claude Skills will catch up as well on other solutions. And I will be submitting maybe a video this week so that you can see what kind of things we can achieve with such technology. For the other improvements, as usual, whenever you have a pain point, just share it and we'll schedule it as well. Just trying to stick to the time and looking if there are more questions. Since I have a small delay. Right. Great. I guess in this case, I'll be monitoring the chat on Discord if something comes up later. The replay will be available soon after the session ends, and you can share it with your colleagues. Feel free also to join the Discord server if you have not done so, and the GitHub repo, and start it and share it with your organization and whoever you believe will benefit from this platform. Thank you again, and have a good one.